Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Michele Molitor. I am your hostess with the mostest. I'm the founder of this Lean In Circle Wonder Women Unite, and I'm thrilled and delighted to be here with you all today on August 18th. Happy Friday. It's a beautiful day here in the Bay Area, and I hope it's beautiful where you are as well. For those of you who are just joining us, this circle is all about supporting women, helping each other step into our greatness, finding our full voice. We have women executives and entrepreneurs and educators and amazing people from all over the world. We have women now. We have 213 members. We're up 6 members from last month. From literally every corner of the planet, which is super exciting. Oh, okay. I'm back. I don't really know what happened there. Let me make sure. Oh, the recording is still going. So that was really odd. Anyway, we have women from all over the planet who join the call every month, who are in the group. And if you know of other amazing women that are interested in joining the circle, please have them join. It's very easy. You just go to leanincircles.org and go to the online. Wow, this has never happened. Sorry, my computer's going wackadoodle. Kathleen, can you still hear me?
I can now. You do keep coming in and out.
Huh. All right. Well, it's
now
very,
I can hear you.
It's very
I can
odd.
hear you. I can hear you and see you now.
Yay. All right. I don't know what's happening. Oh, come on. Don't. Here we go. There we go. Lordy Lou. I love it when the technology works. And when it doesn't, it's a little throws me off my game. Okay. Anyway, carrying on.
It's okay. We're here to listen.
I know. Well, it's going to be a discussion here in just a minute as soon as I stop talking. But I do want to say that as we continue to grow the community, I really, really am interested in getting to know you and who you are. And if you'd like to schedule a one-on-one call with me, we can just have a virtual coffee chat over Skype like this. Works anywhere in the world. And so just send me an email at Michele, Michele, at nectarconsulting.com, and we can get that scheduled. I'll put my email address here in the chat box. nectarconsulting.com. It's very difficult to talk and type. My brain doesn't function that way. There we go. Okay, so as I said, we're up to 213 members now, which is super exciting. And we want to continue to grow that. And don't forget, you can also join the Facebook group. We have a private Wonder Women Unite ! Group on Facebook, which has 91 members so far. So please join us there if you haven't already. And then I also want to let you know about our next upcoming expert hour, which is coming up next Friday, same bat time, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 Eastern, 5:30 p.m. British UK. And that call is going to feature a dear friend and colleague of mine, Nancy Marmoleo. I can never pronounce her last name right. She's an awesome woman, and she's going to be talking about how you can step into your deep genius, right? So she defines genius as an exceptional intellectual or creative power or other natural ability. And most of us think of that as like, Einstein, for example, or Da Vinci. But we all have that genius within us. And so she's going to be talking about the building blocks of what will help you bring out your brilliance and your genius in a really beautiful way. So next Friday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 Eastern. Please join us. All right. Can you guys hear me? Is it coming through loud and clear? Yes?
I can't really. You keep breaking up.
Frustrating. All right, I'm going to turn off my video.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. I have tried to come in through the video conference, and I still can't hear you. I'm now calling in, and I still can't hear you. Keep breaking up. So I'm going to have to come out because I just can't hear you.
All right. Well, I'm going to turn. Let me turn off my video. No, not what I want. How do I stop my video? Here we go. Okay. Can you guys hear me now? Is that better?
Yes.
That is better? Okay, great. I have done everything in my power to amplify my internet connections, and AT&T is what it is. So
it's okay. We can fix it.
Yeah.
We can get another provider. You go with your bad self.
All right. So let's see. Kathleen, why don't you go ahead and turn off your video as well, and we'll all just be on audio, and hopefully that will make the call more effective. Okay. So now, all that aside, blah, 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 blah. Sorry, technical difficulties. I'd love to go around the room and have you guys introduce yourselves. So your name, where you're from, and what's one thing you're celebrating this week. So who would like to start?
I'll start.
Sure.
My name is Wendy. I'm in California, and I'm celebrating vacation starting tomorrow.
Yay! Where are you on vacation, Wendy?
Just to the beach.
Nice. Great. Thank you, Wendy, for being here. I appreciate it. Who else? Oh, don't be shy.
I'll go next.
Okay, Kathleen, thanks.
Sure. So I'm Kathleen Ferris. I'm excited that I not only have a new role as the Chief Operating Officer of the Genesis Group, which is a consulting firm. I'm thankful for Michele and what she's brought to my life, and I'm excited about what this group is going to do for all of us.
Thank you. Who else?
I'll go next. Hi, everyone. This is my first time here. I'm Cindy, and I'm calling from London, UK. I am celebrating that I've had a breakthrough in a few business ideas I've been working on. And I am thankful for my husband for just being, standing, standing with me on this one.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Congratulations, Cindy. That's awesome. So glad you could join us.
Thank you.
Who else?
Hi, I'll go next. This is Nida Gabriel. I'm in Oakland, California. This weekend, I'm celebrating a friend who is coming to visit me. I had worked with her for 13 years, and she moved from California to Idaho, and now she's visiting me this weekend. So I'm just celebrating the time to be with her.
Wonderful. Thank you. Who's next?
I can go next. So my name is Robin, and I live near Rochester, New York. And this week and this weekend, I'm celebrating friends and friendship and reestablishing old connections.
Nice.
Nice.
Very exciting. And let's see, who's in the 760 area code?
That was Wendy. I already went.
Okay, Wendy. Great. Thank you. I'm just trying to put labels on everybody's phone numbers so I can know who I'm talking to when they pop up. And then who's in the 541?
Hi, my name's Nicole. I'm new to the group. I live in Oregon, and I am celebrating a 4-day weekend because of the eclipse.
Nice.
Nice.
Very exciting. Yeah, I was just reading about that this morning, trying to figure out where I can get my solar eclipse glasses. Wonderful. Let's see. Who else have we not heard from yet? Am I missing anybody? We got Nida. Deb, have we heard from you? Deb Hall, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
There
Deb?
you are.
Yep, I'm from Orlando, Florida, and I'm celebrating learning new things and just being open to and being courageous enough to learn new things.
Awesome. Thank you, Deb. And welcome. I'm excited you're here. I actually grew up in Cocoa, so I'm a Florida girl relocated to the West Coast. So, cool. So let me just do this so I can keep track of everybody. And yeah, if you want, down at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat. You can click on that and a chat box will open up on the side. And you can see you might be able to see the participant names. I don't know if you can see them or if it's just me. But anyway, great to have you here. So today, what we're going to be talking about is how to create greater engagement. And we're doing that, we're looking at it through the lens of how do we ourselves engage more fully. It's not about how to get others to engage, but about getting ourselves to engage more fully, which in turn creates a safe space for other people to engage. So it's really about how do you step more fully into your own courage, your voice, your genius, right? And do that in a way that promotes your learning and growth. So I wanted to pull up a graphic here. I'm going to do a screen share to kind of help illustrate this point. This is what I call your genius zone. And when we're fully engaged with something, we can very easily be operating from our genius zone. And that's the place where we're safe, we're comfortable in our skin, we're owning our space. It's easy for us to operate from here. And oftentimes it's so easy, it's almost as if we're on we're on remote control, right? You know, like when you put your car on autopilot, that can be a place where we operate from really, really easily. But the flip side of that is it might not be very challenging, right? So when we can step into that place of your learning zone, this second tier, this is where things get a little more exciting and exhilarating because your fears might get kicked up a little bit. You're stretching to do something new and different, perhaps. And that's the place where all the learning happens. But if we stretch too far, we end up in the panic zone, which is way out here. And that usually ends up putting us as a deer in the headlights and shutting us down in one way, shape, or another. You know, we recoil, we disengage completely because we're just way too fearful. And so it's like being on a teeter-totter. If you want to balance yourself on a teeter-totter, you have to stand somewhere in the middle, right? To find that balance, to find that fulcrum. But the learning the challenge happens as you go further out to one side, right? But still being able to find that balance. So learning how to operate by being in your genius zone, but then expanding your learning zone and doing it till you find those edges of where you're really, really uncomfortable and you have to pull back ever so slightly. So is this making sense? Do you guys know what I'm talking about here?
Yep.
And so what might be an example that one of you have of a time that you stretched beyond your comfort zone and, dared to reach out and learn something new? Just give us an example and how that felt for you.
So I can share my experience as I'm thinking about it. I think for me, when I was assigned a new position to head up a different region and got relocated to Singapore and moved there for 2 years. It was really outside my comfort zone because I had been working in the US for a long time, traveling all over, of course, but never had to move my entire self, my life, to the other side. But I mean, to the other side of the world. But I found out that, of course, I was anxious. To some degree, it was exciting, but it was also kind of, I was nervous because I didn't know anybody. I had no friends. I had no relatives. I just went there by myself, and but I learned a lot just with that experience. You become more independent. You learn to make new friends, and you know, then it got exciting. I got to go to Bali every other weekend because it was only, an hour and a half away or whatever it was, and but I did learn a lot within that 2-year period. It was, the first 6 months, I think I was like just trying to get my life organized, and then you get adapted to the new environment. It was hot. It was everything I didn't expect. I mean, everything that I wasn't used to, but I got used to it. And after 2 years, what a wonderful experience. I came back and just, it was a lifetime experience. And I would have never had that opportunity if I just stayed in my own comfort zone.
Ah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Nida. That's a perfect example. That is really a perfect example. So some of the points that I wanted to share with you today, and then we'll talk about, fall in line perfectly with that, because it's when you can, when you're presented with new opportunities for learning and growth, it's about how do you engage in positive thinking instead of letting your fears overtake your brain, right? And it's only through being courageous enough to step outside of your comfort zone that you can ground yourself more fully in your own strength, because you can look back. In this case, Nada, you can look back at that experience now and go, wow, look what I was able to create. Look what I was able to move through, and how much stronger and more confident of a person that you are, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So part of engaging is about noticing those fears, noticing where you're pushing the edges of your panic zone, and moving into it anyway, right? It's funny because yesterday Kathleen and I were talking, and I was sharing with her that when I'm working on something really exciting that's pushing my edges and starts to kick up my fears, I literally get squirmy in my seat. Like I can't sit still, and the top of my head starts to tingle and itch. It's really, really bizarre, right? But I was able to notice it one day and catch myself like, okay, this is what uncomfortable feels like, right? So I want to turn this into a bumper sticker, but I haven't yet, which says uncomfortable happens, keep going, right? Because it's just telling you that, okay, well, this is a place to stretch and grow beyond that former shell of yourself, the thought that, oh, I can only do this much. Well, no, you're capable of so much more than that, right? So tell me about a time when any of you might have experienced where you were scared perhaps to speak your truth, speak your mind, say in a meeting or at work in some way, shape, or form. And what happened when you actually either did speak your truth or you didn't, either or. Does anyone have an example that comes to mind? I'm going to call on you, Kathleen, because I know you do.
I was like, well, I could go, but so the example I can give, which is still somewhat vivid in my mind, is when I was in a meeting with my VP and our director of operations, and I walked into the room and noticed right away that my energy was coming up from my feet to my heart. And so by the time I sat down at the table to give them feedback on what to do since I was resigning from my position, instead of being fully confident and sharing with them when they were asking me my opinion on what they should do to plan the transition, I swallowed the energy, recoiled, and felt less than enough and worthy. Instead of stepping into the space I was in where I felt complete, I had made a choice to leave, take a big leap of faith, bet on myself, and I did not show up authentically and gave them an opinion that was an opinion, more of doing than being. And so at the end of the conversation, I did give them an authentic answer, but as you can tell now with my voice, it's starting to crackle a little bit because I can feel in that space where when you don't manage the energy that's coming up through your feet and don't step in and be you, then the energy takes over and then you don't show up authentically to not only help yourself, but to really help others that are around you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kathleen. Yeah, that's such a great example. Because that's one of the things I've learned in the 16 years I've been a coach is that we have this amazing body that gives us a ton of information when we're willing to tune in and listen to it, right? So when we get uncomfortable, oftentimes is we feel that rush of energy. We feel that knot in your stomach, right? Whatever it might be, that crick in your neck, and we try to ignore it, or we try to put it off, right? But that feeling is trying to tell you something, right? And it's your job to use your intuition, your higher self, to help you figure out exactly what it is that it's trying to tell you. And when you can step into it and be like, wow, okay, I feel that fear, but I'm going to do it anyway and move into it anyway and speak my truth so that I can authentically be me, then what shows up on the other side of that is like, wow, look what I was able to do and how freeing it feels to actually speak your truth. I spent many, many years not speaking my truth and hiding out for fear of not being good enough, for fear of not being liked or loved or being rejected. A lot of those things, right? Both personally and professionally. And it created a massive downfall. I used to be in web development. I was a creative director, and my fears got the best of me and created a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I ended up getting fired from my job. And it was one of the most painful experiences that I've ever been through. My confidence was shattered. My self-esteem was in a puddle at my feet. And I truly didn't know what to do next. And it was through a gift of my uncle to point me in the direction of hiring a coach to help me figure out what to do next, that I discovered coaching to help me, like, okay, well, if I'm not going to do that anymore, what do I do? And I discovered my passion for coaching. And so I don't want you to have to hit a wall like I did to figure out what to do next. Because there are better ways, but if that's your way that you want to take, go right ahead. But I don't recommend it necessarily.
It definitely doesn't feel as good to go down that route. It does feel extremely empowering, and I think I have come so far from the edge, and know that being a self-managed adult, where I take responsibility for initiating every step and committing to the step, I have achieved way more, not only in developing myself, but developing others, where operating from fear and a place of no self-worth is not a happy place. So developing those tools to self-manage and go out into the world and do good work definitely feels better.
Yes. And so my point of bringing this up is I really want you all to start noticing when your voice wants to be heard, and are you allowing it to be heard, or are you quelling it? Are you stifling your own voice in whatever the situation may be? So you can start by noticing and see if it's a pattern that's happening for you. And if it is, and it's something you want to break free of, then that's a different conversation to have. But the first step really is noticing, like, where am I speaking my truth? Where am I not speaking my truth? And using that as a way to lean into your own expansion and growth. Because we lean from our genius zone, our comfort zone, into that learning zone so that we can step more and more into ourselves. The next point that I wanted to raise with you all is, how do you, in order to do that, you have to take an active role in your own life. You have to take ownership of how you want to show up in the world, instead of letting yourself be blown around by the winds of what's ever happening around you. And that's easy to do, especially if you have a lot of strong personalities around you. I have learned over the years that I am very sensitive to other people's energies and emotions, good, bad, or indifferent. I can feel them. And if I'm not conscious to it, I will take them on and not even realize it. I can be in a good mood one moment, and the next minute after someone walks through the door, I'll be in a bad mood, and they won't even said a word. It's just a matter of, wow, okay, is that my stuff or is that somebody else's stuff? So by taking ownership of your own experience, you can then create and dictate your own future versus letting any naysayers or Debbie Doubters or hateful heralds take over your control of your bus, right? We don't want anybody else to be driving your bus. So who might have an example of sometime in your life where you realized that you were being overly influenced by someone in your space, whether it's someone you work with, your boss, a family member, a spouse? It can look a whole lot of different ways. Anybody have an example of that and the impact it had on you? Anybody? No?
So Michelle, I just wanted to comment on that self-ownership. I think sometimes, and I came from an environment like that where the office politics is so strong that it almost becomes toxic, right? Because you no longer have the space or or the freedom. I mean, you have the freedom, but you don't feel safe to speak your truth. You don't feel safe to say, the right things because you're so overshadowed by whether it's your boss with a strong opinion of everything. There's those people that will come in and they have this energy that's so overwhelming. They don't care about anybody else. They'll step over whoever to get whatever it is that they want to get done. And so sometimes it's difficult to speak your truth in that kind of environment.
Absolutely. It absolutely is difficult. I totally understand that. And the challenge in those kinds of environments is that you have to weigh the balance between staying quiet and not being true to yourself and honoring your own values. And is this a battle that you want to fight? If it's a battle, right?
Yep.
And sometimes it's not worth it, right?
Yep, exactly.
But sometimes if the person or the situation is so egregious, it can be completely out of alignment with your own values, your own core values. And what I've learned is that when that happens, when something is so out of alignment with your values, say, for example, someone was doing something less than legal, for example, and I'm making this up, right? But if you were to find out about that and like, wow, that's really not in alignment with my core values, but by not saying anything, you're going along with it. And then that misalignment can create a ripple effect of dis-ease in your physical system, in your nervous system, which can then, and in an emotional system as well, which can then start to build up and could potentially lead to stress, tension, illness, and disease, right? When we don't align our values with our work, that's what happens. And I've learned this the hard way.
Yep.
And so each situation is different. I completely understand that. And, everybody has to weigh the pros and cons regarding that. So, but it's, the more you're clear about your own values and what's important and what you're willing to do, and more importantly, what you're not willing to do, like what's your own line in the sand when it comes to those kinds of people or those particular kinds of situations, then it makes it much easier for you to then go, no, this isn't okay. I'm not going to be party to this, et cetera, et cetera. What, again, whatever the situation might be. Any other thoughts on that particular point? No? Okay.
Sorry, this is Cindy. I just want to concur with you there, Michelle, because as you were talking, I've just reminded of a situation I found myself in whilst I was employed in a corporate job, and I was in a team that I really I enjoyed being in the team. We'd been together for a long time, so we all knew each other personally as well as professionally. But then we had a change of management, and one of the guys who was in our team was then promoted to manage the team. Again, similarly to you, I worked in technology. I worked in an IT department, and the dynamics within the team changed because of the I guess the leadership structure we now had, the management structure we now had. And again, I found my own personal values being, I just found them being stretched to a point where I felt I was no longer existing as me, because I felt I was putting up with a lot of things and not really speaking my truth. And where I felt, at times when I spoke my truth, and I just felt, well, I was just being disregarded. And so it's, for me, I think because my personal values were continuously being, put in a state of, being diminished to try and keep up, because I really enjoyed my job. I loved the team. They were kind of like my second family. But the dynamics, because of the way we were being managed, the language that was now being used within the team, it just didn't sit right with me at all. So I ended up I would go into work and put on my headphones throughout the day. So so I kind of became disjointed to the rest of the team. I started living in my own bubble of just protecting my own mind, my own self and not really conversing much with the team anymore. So I think you're right. I think you need, sometimes I would say if anyone finds themselves in that situation, just take a step back and think what is important to you. Because if you don't speak up and deal with it, you could end up, it brings up other things, health issues and things like that. So I just wanted to put that point across.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Cindy. I appreciate you sharing that. Because it can make for a very toxic environment. Exactly. And eventually that toxicity seeps into your bones, right? And so you have to be mindful of that and decide how much you're willing to tolerate before you need to extricate yourself from the situation in one way, shape, or form. When I was a creative director, I had moved here to the Bay Area from Atlanta, and I was in a very toxic environment, which is why I decided to leave. And then I got hired here in San Francisco, and I went from the fire to the frying pan, which was really interesting and ironic, because I went from a situation that was bad to a situation that ended up actually being worse than what I could have imagined, sadly. And I felt really, really stuck, because I had just moved to one of the most beautiful yet most expensive cities in the world. And while they had doubled my salary, my rent tripled, right? And so I had these really nice golden handcuffs, and I couldn't just walk away from my position. And so the universe was kind enough to kick me off the bus. Like, no, this really isn't working for you. You need to figure it out. And so I got laid off, and at the time it was really devastating, but it was such a blessing in disguise for me, because it led me to my true work and passion in the world. And so that actually brings me to my next point, which is, focus on the upside and neutralize the downside, which is, even in very challenging situations as that, I have learned to always focus on, okay, well, what have I learned from this? Even though that was a really crappy thing to have to go through, what have I learned from it? And how can I grow from it? And from the negative things that happened, what parts of me need to change in order to not have that happen again, right? How do I need to stand in my own strength in order for that not to happen again? Because I was essentially bullied out of my position, and it was really icky. It was really, really icky. But because of it, I'm a hell of a lot stronger. And if that situation, if I was in that situation now, it wouldn't happen, because it's, you know, the people that were bullying me, I would have been like, well, F you, and take your badass self and go home, but I'm not going to tolerate you, right? So, and so, you know, you get to look at any of these situations in your life that are challenging you, that are pushing you beyond the edge of your learning zone into that panic zone, and like, wow, okay, what is it that I need to learn here about myself or about others? Is there something about this other person that I'm being encouraged to see in a way without any rose-colored glasses, right? So it's an interesting thing. And then you can, you know, even with the downside of things, there's always a gift to be found, you know? I remember when my dear friend Stacy passed away several years ago at the age of 45 unexpectedly. It was tragic and devastating on so many levels. Makes me cry thinking about it. But there was a gift in it too, because I was able to learn some things about myself and release some things that I didn't even know I was holding on to through the grieving of her. I was able to grieve some other things as well. So, you know, I always try to find that, and I would encourage you all as well. No matter how difficult a situation can be, there's always some gift, some nugget of wisdom in there for you to find for yourself. And it might just be for you. It might not be for anybody else. So keep that in mind. So when we come across these situations, these fears that potentially are holding us back from speaking our truth and being our authentic selves, what are some of the ways that each of you have found that you can move through it? Encourage yourself to stretch into your learning zone and move beyond that fear. Anybody have an example they'd like to share?
I think, so this is Cindy again. One thing I have learned and I'm now abiding by is that I'm living my life on intention. So everything I'm doing is on purpose. So I just don't, you know, if a thought comes to me and I feel really good about that thought, I just don't fear it, I do it. Because I realize now I have missed on a lot of opportunities and a lot of good stuff because of fear and doubting myself. You know, I keep saying to myself, well, what's the worst that can happen?
Yes, exactly.
And, you know,
exactly.
That's it. What's the worst that can happen?
I like to call that a pre-mortem, right? Instead of a post-mortem, when you're looking back at a project, you can do a pre-mortem, like, well, what is the worst that could happen, right? Because oftentimes it's those fears that, without any logic, like, well, if I get up in front of these people and I speak, then they might not like me and they'll reject me, and then I'll lose my job, and then I'll be homeless on the street, right? Our brains go to that extreme, even though our logical brain, we're like, no, that's not going to happen. What are you talking about? Right? So we have this conversation back and forth in our minds with ourselves. And so that's a great question to ask. Well, what is the worst that can happen? well, they might say no, or they might not want to buy whatever it is from you, or they might not want to do that thing with you, whatever it might be, right? And you're like, oh, okay, well, have you survived harder things than that? Of course you have, right? We've all had difficult challenges that we've moved through. So thank you, Cindy. So who else has a story along those lines where you've been able to reframe a fear and move forward anyway?
I've got one.
Sure, Deb, go ahead.
What I try to do is just be really aware, like wherever I am, and surround myself with quotes or any sort of bits of wisdom that might happen in a conversation, or for example, as simple as like a coaster in a restaurant. So recently, I was in Decatur, Georgia, it was a Ted Turner restaurant called, I think, Bison or something like this. And all the coasters in this restaurant had John Wayne quote. And the quote is, "Courage is being scared to death and saddling up anyway." And I was like, oh, I love this quote. It just spoke so much to what I was going through at that time. So I made a point to ask the waitress, could I keep the coaster? And then I ended up getting a T-shirt, based on the quote, and I just keep that around me. So these are just things, that I do, is just look for bits of wisdom and then just keep it around me. So, I'm reminded of, oh yeah, John Wayne, he's encouraging me, be courageous.
Oh, I love that. That's great. That's really great. Who else has a story like that to share?
So for me, I always think of it as no regrets. Like, I would say the hardest conversation that I've had is meeting with my CEO when I left my last job, because a VP that he brought in had bullied me out. And the team that he had surrounded himself with were the ones who were really taking advantage of employees. And after I had already left, I had the meeting scheduled after. And it would have been so much easier not to have that conversation. But for me, I thought, well, later I'm going to regret it. And there is the possibility that I could help somebody else from being in the same situation that I was currently in.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you, Nicole, for sharing that. Yeah. That's a great thing. You always have to be, particularly as women, sadly, I think we have to always be mindful of our safety, right? And whether that's physical, mental, or emotional safety. And having a difficult conversation like that after the fact, after you've left that toxic environment, was a great way for you to, be able to speak your truth and hopefully not have any repercussions based on that. But oftentimes, if we're still within a company, that's part of the challenge is there going to be a repercussion because of my actions or my words, right? So the more that we engage ourselves, the more that we can step into our own power, find our voice and speak our truth, the more and more easier it becomes to do that regardless of the situation. So the thing to think about is when you're presented in those moments, you have to consider what are the outcomes of acting or not acting. Right? So if I actually do say what I need to say, what might happen, and if I don't, what might happen, right? And which is worse, which is better, right? So if we consider the outcomes of acting, you can look at, well, what's the big opportunity or the challenge, and what's the worry or fear that might be holding you back? So does anyone have a particular situation right now that they're dealing with that this is particularly poignant for you that you might want to share and get some feedback from the group? Kathleen? Or is that just you typing?
Yeah, it's me typing.
Oh, okay. No worries. Well, you know, there's always going to be those challenges that come up in our day-to-day, whether it's we're looking to rise within the ranks at our organization to take on a bigger position, or expand your company in a new and exciting way that you haven't ever done before, or bringing new people onto your team and learning how to trust and to lean into others, right? There's a lot of different ways this can look. And so it's a matter of just noticing the fears that are coming up for you and asking yourself, am I bigger than my fear, or is my fear bigger than me? Right? And 99.9% of the time, you're probably bigger than your fear, because you are stronger than you know, stronger than you think, right? So my question for each of you, and I'd like to go around the room, is to ask you, what's one thing that, one opportunity that you want to step into more fully over this next month that's going to have you stretch into your learning zone a little bit more? So let's just go around the room and share. So who would like to start?
This is Tammy.
I can start.
Sorry.
Tammy can start.
I'm kind of late to the party, so I apologize. I just got on a few minutes ago.
Hi, Tammy. Welcome.
But no. Hi, thank you. You know, when you were talking about really stepping fully into a bigger version of yourself, one of the things that I'm faced with right now is the opportunity. It's quite an interesting opportunity that has presented itself this week, where a client, after we've made an agreement, wants to change the agreement and make it a lower price to where I would be losing money. And part of the original agreement was for her to make some videos for me that would document the journey of the customer, which I thought was a fantastic idea that's a fantastic marketing idea. But literally, if I took her on as a client, two things would happen. Not only would I be losing about $2,500 over the course of the engagement, and I thought to myself, well, is that marketing worth $2,500? Possibly. But more than that, it was, if I say yes to her after we've already made an agreement as to how much I was charging her for our engagement, and now she's changing that, you know, who am I making an agreement with, and do I really want to work with that person? And the whole engagement is even at a discounted price worth about $8,500. So what I've got to do is be courageous enough to walk away from the $8,500 over the course of the engagement and say, you know, no, I don't think we're a good fit, and I think I'm going to refund the $1,800 that you've paid me so far, and just walk away from it, and take that silver lining that you were talking about earlier, as the learning lesson of, hey, I can really document the journey of a customer some other time without losing $2,500 and without getting into an arrangement where she changes the price on me after we've signed an agreement. So So that's something that just came up, literally 2 days ago.
Great.
And,
Thank you, Tammy.
I've
I
been
appreciate
kind of
that.
going back and forth on that. And I think the right thing to do is just to walk away from it and wait till I find someone else to do that marketing. So.
And here's the thing, and this is for all of you.
It's kind of scary to walk away from that money.
Well, sure it is, but here's the thing, and this applies to everybody, is when you're courageous enough to say no to what really isn't a good fit for you, then you're making room for the person who is a really good fit for you to walk through the door, right? So thank you. I appreciate you sharing that, Tammy. So who else has something that they're committing to over the next month that they are going to be courageous and speak their truth?
This is Nicole again. I have decided to start applying for opportunities elsewhere, and there's a lot of fear in that because the job that I have is really great as far as I am able to make really good things happen, feel like I make a positive impact on the organization and my staff. However, I've been put in the position where essentially I am doing a COO job with a director title, and my boss wants me to be a COO but can't justify it, but also wants me to do all of that work plus more. And the way he operates is I'll end up never getting that title because I'm already doing the job, so why would I need that title? So it's probably time for me to leave the comfort zone of being in a place where I know I can really do great things and I'm really comfortable with that, and go out and try to find a job that's going to be rewarding as well as the challenging.
Exactly. I applaud you for doing that, because the truth is, if you don't respect yourself enough, then they're not going to respect you, right? So by taking a stand for what is important to you, they'll be like, oh, okay. And oftentimes when you go out and look for another position and get another offer, they might suddenly realize what they're going to lose, and they'll suddenly, change the game. So that way you have some bargaining, some flexibility in there. So great job, Nicole. Who else?
That is, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Probably stealing somebody else's time. One of the challenges with that is I am doing things in the organization that nobody else can do. I'm in medical, and so we are establishing our first primary care clinic and rural health clinic and moving on to all this stuff. I am a one-man team to get all of this done, and it pretty much hinges on whether the organization succeeds or fails financially. So I'm obviously going to finish that commitment before I move on. And you would think I would have the world's biggest bargaining chip with that, but I do not feel comfortable leveraging that because it's not necessarily the right thing to do. I kind of want them to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, but at the same time, I'm not willing to kind of leverage what I'm doing within the organization.
Sure. I get that. Well, let's, Nicole, if you want to talk offline more about that, I'm happy to share some other thoughts with you. But I want to make sure that everybody else has a chance to share if anybody else wants to share. So who else is something they're going to commit to over the next month and speak their truth?
I can go. Hi, this is Wendy. So I work in financial services, and my long-term CEO is retiring. He, great guy. Everybody really liked working for him. I really liked working for him. Not the most decisive, but we're also in a position where the organization needs to move forward. So it's a great time to get a new CEO in. Unfortunately, we're all sitting here waiting with bated breath to find out who the board is going to make the new CEO. Myself and my only peer in the organization have both applied, and they're also entertaining external candidates. An external candidate has the potential to eliminate my position, so it just puts me in this unusual holding pattern. So I'm just committing to continue to lean into my job, which I absolutely love, and whatever future opportunity either the new CEO presents, or I'm keeping my options open for other organizations. Maybe it's time for me to move on as well.
Well, it's an interesting and uncomfortable place to be in, for sure, because uncertainty is always uncomfortable. And I would encourage each of you, as with any of these situations, I want you to really focus on how you want it to unfold. What's the outcome that you really want to see? So visualize it in your mind, feel it, play it out like a movie in your head, and really feel that positive outcome that you want to create, whatever shape or form that looks like, whether it's, finding that new job for you, Nicole, or Wendy actually having a new CEO come in and be like, oh my gosh, you're the best thing since sliced bread. How did I ever live my life without you, kind of thing, right? Same thing for you, Tammy, is really visualize what's the outcome that you want to create, because you really do have the power to manifest those outcomes. As my shirt says, which you can't see because the video's off, but it's Wonder Woman, and it says stronger than you think, more powerful than you know, right? So focus on what you do want versus what you don't want. Let's see, who else?
Great, thank you.
You're very welcome. Robin, would you like to share something?
Sure, I can share. So I tend to be very shy by nature. And this month, a friend of mine she has a company, she runs a company in a town that borders the one I am in. She also does a morning radio show. And she's been featuring women in business, and she asked me if I would go on it next week. So I am nervous about it, but I did commit to doing it. So for me, that's kind of, it's definitely pushing me outside of my comfort zone. And I know, though, that that's something that no doubt it can help me grow. So I do have that. And then I also, on occasion, when the CEO is out of the office, we do a monthly all-member meeting. And we have about 200 employees. And so in his absences, and it's not often that when he's out it falls, it lines up when we have an all-member meeting, but there is one coming up in a few weeks, and so I'll have to do that. And I've done them before, but they do make me a little anxious. So given that I'll have these two things, only maybe about 10 days apart from each other, I think it's a little scary for me, but it definitely helps push me, past my comfort zone limits. So that's what I'm working with.
Fantastic. Well, I know you'll do an amazing job, and you'll rock out the house. It'll be great. So don't you worry.
Well, thanks.
Don't you worry. Let's see, who else? Deb, did you have something you wanted to share?
A couple things. So I've just recently been made basically a program chair of 2 different programs. And one program has the reputation within my division. I teach electronic engineering technology stuff and energy management controls technology. And so this electronic engineering technology department is the one department within the entire engineering division that's been the most contentious. And so one of the things that my dean said was, so you want to step up to the plate and be a program chair of this department, do you? And I'm like, yeah, definitely. And she's like, well, this is, one thing that, she really wants to address is past program chairs. It's just been, head butting and just people stepping on people's toes and disrespecting. And so I guess, my hope is starting this next month, because our semester starts the 28th of August. So, you know, we're going to be in full force. And end of this month is just basically bringing peace and respect back to this particular program.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, we're sourcing peace and respect for you in your program, and I know it'll be great. Guys will do amazing things. Let's see. Cindy, we haven't heard from you.
Right, with me, because I am self-employed, I have some goals that I would like to, you know, to really pursue and, you know, and focus on this coming month. So I guess, you know, and that, so I guess for me, it's the intention to focus on those goals for this month.
Okay. And what's one goal that you're going to focus on that you can share with us?
The one goal really I'm really intent on is to, I'm currently doing a coaching course. So that I've started. So again, you know, I really need to focus on completing some of the modules that I need to focus, you know, to complete for this coming month. So I've got, I've put myself down for 3 modules to complete, including the reading material that comes with it, as well as running the other business, my consulting business.
Great. Well, good for you. That's very exciting. Very, very exciting. All right. Well, thank you, ladies, for sharing. I know we've gone over our time by a little bit, but I wanted to make sure everyone had a time to share. We had to lose a few people. And so I wanted to say, you know, as you're stretching towards these goals, if that's something that you're feeling challenged by, I'm more than happy to have a complimentary 30-minute session with you via Zoom like this. So if you want to schedule some time to chat with me, please just email me, Michele, Michele at Nectar Consulting. More than happy to talk with you and see how we can, you know, keep you on track and stretching and growing. So last but not least, just want to let you know that our next call is going to be September 21st. Our next regular Wonder Women Unite call is going to be September 21st at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. And then again, a reminder that our next expert hour call is going to be next Friday with Nancy Marmoleo, hailing here from the Bay Area. And she's going to be talking about how you can cultivate your own deep genius. So thank you so much, ladies, for being here today. It's always my pleasure and joy to be of service to you in this way and to facilitate these conversations so we can all, you know, really support each other and find our voices and be the most brilliant version of ourselves out in the world, because you all are up to really good work. So thank you very much for sharing your joy and your light with me. And I look forward to seeing you on next week's Expert Hour call. All right?
Thank you, Michele.
All right.
Thank you, Michele.
You.
Y'all have a blessed day. We'll talk soon. Bye.